Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Divinity podcast. I'm the Robbie Dog, and I'm here today with Sabo, as always. And obviously, we did miss the last 2 weeks. I just want to say that, first of all, and that was due to stuff on my part that I don't have too much control over. Still want to apologize for that, of course, and also want to apologize to you again, Sabo, for not finding the time. But now we're back, and we're here this week to discuss everything that happened in week 6. Obviously, we might go into some of the topics of previous weeks if they come up in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, to start the episode off, let's quickly recap the results of the last week that we saw. Again, we're not going to go over all of the weeks that we missed. So on Tuesday, we started the week off with the EU side. And there we saw Rival just beat Energy, and against the entire logic that the team with the best jungler is supposed to be the best team, right? They managed to find a 2-0 victory over Energy, a 2-1 victory over Energy.
I mean, this is typically what we expected, right? Rival beats Energy, Energy beats Dig, Dig beats Rival. I mean, nothing changed.
I mean, you did say in week 3 that you expected Energy to just win everything now because adapting was going God mode.
Yeah, I also said that I expected CLG to make LAN because they were because E United was running out of time after their bad start. That changed too.
Yeah, they had some rough weeks as well, CLG. But yeah, other than that, on Tuesday we saw SK fail to take revenge on Mouse Sports. They lost that set 1-2 in favor of Mouse Sports. So yeah, I guess SK is just officially the worst team in EU right now.
But they played better since they got that new support. I mean,
yeah,
nothing really against Badger or anything, but he just wasn't fitting with the team. And as soon as they brought in, God, what's his name? I don't want to call him the best because that name's already taken.
Who the best?
Who the best? Yeah, since they brought him in, they've looked somewhat better. So
I think he's still supposed to be just a temporary replacement. So from what I know, they're still looking for a new support for the next split as well. But who knows at this point, right? They might be looking to make even more changes than him, to be honest. But anyway, on to Wednesday. What happened then?
Yeah, we're going to North America now. And as I just said, E United makes the LAN, but let's start off with Tuesday and before we get into all that. E United kept their LAN hopes alive against Luminosity with a 2-0 victory. This was really just the Venenu show. Really carried them through those 2 games against Luminosity. Playing, I believe, Apollo and Uller back to back. It might have been just Uller. I'm not. Oh well.
Let me can't check it. So yeah.
Going on to the second game of Wednesday, Splice, forces another game 3 like they always do, but like they always do, they lose a game 3, and CLG kept their LAN hopes alive at the time, 2-1.
Yeah, and then on Thursday we went back to the EU side where basically everything about LAN was going to be decided. First we saw Dignitas taking the set over Mouse Sports, but dropping a game to them as well, which was a bit surprising. That was most likely going to be a 2-0 in most predictions going into it, which didn't end up being the case, obviously. Then in the next set, we saw Rival drop the first game to Obey and then make a comeback in the next 2 games to secure themselves the first seed out of the European region. And in the last set of the week for EU and of the entire split for EU, actually, we saw Dignitas secure themselves LAN by also beating Obey 2-1, which was a very good performance by them as well.
Going back to America for the final day of the season, or final day of the split. First off, we got to see Trifecta try to keep their bid for Masters intact, but CLG once again ends another hope, any hope for Trifecta of getting at that point with a 2-1 victory. Going into the second set, E United need a 2-0 here to secure their spot at LAN, and that's exactly what they did as they 2-0 the top of North American Space Station Gaming. Really was the first time Baskin didn't look like the best player in the world over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Space Station's second loss. Space Station goes into game 3, or set number 3 on Friday against Trifecta. Everything was already decided, but Space Station didn't want to end the split, dropping 2 sets in a row. Trifecta did, however, force a game 3, but it was really just one-sided as Space Station secures number 1 at NA, or number 1 in NA for Masters, even though I think it was already secured at this point.
Yeah, I think it might have been, or maybe it wasn't. Anyway, just let's quickly go over the final standings of the split. Then we can actually look at whether they would have already secured it at that point. Anyway, like we already said, out of EU, we're going to have Rival and Dignitas going to LAN. Rival is in first place in the region with an 8-2 set record and an 18-7 game record, which puts them over Team Dignitas, who also have an 8-2 set record, but a 17-8 game record. In third place, we have Energy with a 7-3 game record, set record. Game record not really relevant here. In fourth place, we have Obey with a 4-6 game record, set record. Damn it. I'm not gonna make that mistake again, I promise. In fifth place, we have Mouse Sports with a 2-8 set record. And in last place, like we already said, we have SK Gaming with a 1-9 set record. So those are your standings for the European region.
Finally, North America's record with first place, number 1 for North America at the Spring Masters event. Space Station with an 8-2 set record, 16-8 match record. And number 2, defending world champions after an 0-3 start. They run off 6 wins in their last 7 sets for a 6-4 record, a 13-9 match record. CLG, Counter Logic Gaming, finishes right behind them at 6-4 as well, but having lost 2 sets to E United, that's why CLG finds themselves sitting at home. Trifecta barely misses the top 3 at a 5-5 record, a 13-13 record overall, 50% straight down the line. Neither good nor bad. That pretty much sums up Trifecta season.
Yeah.
The surprise of North America, Luminosity, really had a good shot at LAN coming into the last week if they had actually performed well against E United, but they did not, so they ended up 4-6, 9-13 match record, and Splice, probably the worst team we've ever seen, forcing game 3s pretty much every set. Finished 1-9 with an 8-18 record.
Yeah, just look through the game results for Splice on there real quick, and you can see that they lost sets 2-4 in like 2 different places, and then they have 3-2 set record against Trifecta overall. So yeah, they forced a lot of game 3s. Like I think especially most of them in the second half of the split as well. So yeah, and even having an 8-18 record, right? They have 1 game win less than Luminosity, who have 3 more set wins, which is just a bit silly as well. But yeah. And obviously, like you said, Luminosity still had chances to go to LAN going into the week, right? They played 2 sets. And they have a 4-6 record. If they had won those 2 sets, they would have been at 6-4, just like CLG would have been.
They won set this weekend when they dropped it to E United. really kept E United's hope alive. If they had gone 5-5 and won against E United, E United would have been out in Luminosity. Potentially, if Trifecta was able to beat Counter Logic but lose to Space Station, might have had a shot at LAN. But with the E United victory, that really eliminated Luminosity altogether the first set of the week.
Yeah, it's true. Was wrong about that. Sorry. But yeah, and as you can also see, like looking at the scores, 8-2 to Space Station and 6-4 to E United. So first seed was indeed already decided after pretty much just before the week even started, to be honest. Because Space Station was already sitting at 7-2, 7-1, right?
Yeah, 7-1.
So yeah, United wouldn't have been able to catch up to them anyway. And that is down to that one set that they lost in week 5, I think, to
Week
Trifecta.
5 to Trifecta, yeah.
Yeah,
Where, while we're talking about that set, if we had actually done an episode last week, Mask was probably my MVP because he just went off and carried that set against E United. E United really didn't have an answer for Mask in that set, so that's a good effort from Mask is what cost E United an undefeated record going down the backstretch.
Yeah, which would have been awesome to see, right? Just them coming back and not even dropping a game, or potentially in the second half of the split. But it wasn't to be the case, and Trifecta managed to find 2 games over them in that set, so we're looking at E United as only the second seed out of NA.
But if you think about it, if they line the brackets up correctly, we get exactly what we thought we would get at the beginning of the split, right? Like E United versus Dignitas, because though it's not in the finals, could not potentially be in the finals for Smite Masters. The semifinal match that we could have E United versus Dignitas. Because number 1 in Europe versus number 2 in North America, vice versa, number 1 in North America versus number 2 in Europe.
Yeah, but Dignitas is the number 2 in Europe.
Oh yeah, Dignitas. Okay, it could be a finals match.
Yeah.
We might get a Worlds rematch in the semifinal.
I mean, depending on how the brackets go and how many other teams are in there, right? We could have just a matchup between E United and Rival again. So a Worlds Finals rematch, which will be fun as well.
A final.
Yeah, most likely. I'm not sure how the brackets are going to be. I'm not even sure how many teams are invited, to be honest.
We're going to have to see the brackets, but it should be lined up where number 1 EU, number 2 NA, and then number 1 NA versus number 2 EU. So, but it's potentially looking like a Space Station versus Dignitas and E United versus Rival in the semifinals.
Yeah, I expect that to be the case, to be honest. But we're gonna have to wait and see. If you look at the standings as well, you can really see how big the difference between Obey and the top of EU seems to be. But I think that's a bit deceiving, considering Obey looked just awful in the first half of the splits and looked decent in the second half.
Yeah, pretty much for Obey, it was exactly what we thought it was going to be. Little bit of a rough start to the season because they were still working out some of the synergy issues with Raffer. But as the split played out, I'm going to have to stop saying season. But as the split played out, we saw, F. alluded to it on Thursday in their set against Dignitas, that Fire Giant, or not the Fire Giant, but the Gold Fury, where Zero's on the Toth, shoots the ult at the Gold Fury. Obey drops it just long enough to immune it and then secure it just seconds later. And that's, F. said it best, that's not something that they could have been able to do the first few weeks of the season because just the synergy wasn't there. And
yeah, it's not something your average ranked team is going to pull off. Basically.
things are looking good for Obey going forward. Top of EU is going to be highly competitive in the summer. I wouldn't even say I wouldn't go as far as say Mouse Sports is going to fall down where they're in fifth place. I think Mouse Sports has played well, just haven't been able to find the set victories over these top of the European standings. So EU is looking like a five team race if SK can't get it together.
I mean, you say that Mouse is good, but they have won 5 games in total, right? 4 of them against SK because they obviously have the set wins against them, and then that one more game that they won against Dignitas. So I think you can say in the individual games they might look good for the early or mid portions of it, but they never seem to be able to actually find wins towards the late game of a game, unless it's against or outside of that one upset game win over Dignitas and the 2 wins they have over SK, where they're just the better team, I'd say, overall right now.
I just think Mouse needs another solo laner other than Nika. Not saying Nika's bad or anything, but doesn't really bring the pressure that you want out of your solo laner right now. And I think there's a couple options in the minor league that could be brought up to replace him.
Yeah, I think at the start of the split we were kind of talking about how he was one of the better looking players within the team, but now it really seems like he's not been able to keep that form going and to improve to a level where he can compete more consistently with the other solo laners in EU. So,
everybody else on the team have gotten better, has looked like they're better from week to week, especially when you get started on actual supports and not mages. And you put big man teams on mages, which towards the later half of the split he's done, and he's looked quite decent on them. Not the top of the mid lane, but serviceable, right? Like he's played good over the last 2 to 3 weeks in that mid lane when you put him on the mages. Nika has he's not really gotten any worse. He's just kind of stalled out. It's like he's reached a plateau and is not going any further. And if the rest of Mouse is getting better, but I mean, we've seen the impact the solo laner can still have with Deathwalker and Benji really carrying that set against Space Station yesterday. So you kind of need somebody in there that's willing to apply that pressure. And again, a few people in the minor league come to mind when I think of that.
Yeah, I haven't paid too much attention to what's been going on in the minor league, but I can imagine that there would be suitable replacements for him. And I think you're right. It's the one spot where Mouse most has to look at finding a replacement, right? You could have argued before this week that the other spot would have been the Hunter role, right? Because Jermaine had a terrible split, but he obviously had a great game, or two great games actually, against SK last week or this week, and really found success there. Basically just letting Mouse overall find the set victory against them there. So yeah.
Well, out of the teams that we've talked about, the teams that aren't going to LAN, who do you think we should watch out for? And let's go ahead and knock Energy off here and keep Energy out of it, because Energy could have very well ended up at the LAN. They're obviously the best of the 4 remaining teams that are not making it to LAN. What's the team from Europe that you want to watch out for in the summer? Is it Obey?
Yeah, it's first and foremost, it's gotta be Obey, right? They're looking now like a team that is going to be able to compete with the top three of Europe in the summer if they all keep their consistent form, or their current form, right? And Obey, I think, still has some ways to go with finding more synergy with Raffer, which I can see being possible. And if they do find more synergy, then they can definitely get themselves into a situation where they can challenge the top three even more easily. So I could see them going to LAN in the summer, definitely. Outside of Obey, because they're just the obvious answer, right? The second answer's gotta be Mouse right now. Because they have, with Tremaine settling into the role, right? And with them finding even game victories against the big teams now, which they did again in the last week against Dignitas, I think they also have a chance to start being a real threat to the top teams again. Because previously, I think their big issue was, right, that their main carry player in Jermaine hadn't shown up. Now that he's shown up, and if he shows up again in the summer, which I would say is not unlikely, I think they can start taking games off of the top teams, like they did this week, with Jermaine showing up.
I mean, who would have thought you put Dardes on a Guardian and Jermaine actually looks better with an actual support in front of him?
I'm not even sure if it's down to that. I just think it's Jermaine finally arriving in Season 5.
That too.
I mean, I think the same argument applies to Twig, by the way. Twig just had it 1 week earlier, right? Because he finally showed up in Season 5 last week, when they won their set against Energy, obviously.
And that's why my team to watch for Europe is Obey above all else. I mean, coming into the year, I mean, they made Worlds last year. They hadn't really changed. They picked up 2-time world champion support. We knew synergy was going to be an issue to work on. And over the last couple weeks, it looks like they've worked out their issues with Raffer. And as they keep playing together, those, it'll just get better and better. Zelia is stepping up for me. I think he's played really good these last 2 to 3 weeks. And then you said it, Twig showing up. Twig showing up was just was just the gas for this team. And it's a jungler-driven meta, yes. Twig was struggling compared to people like Adapting and Cubo Fred. But with Twig being back pretty prime, not having to do it all by himself because hunters just really aren't a thing right now. Well, I can't say that anymore. Many hunters as we saw in the mid lane, especially from North America. But yeah, Ataraxia stepped up, but hasn't really looked like. But that's Ataraxia, right? Like, it's not the greatest, but not the worst. So I think Obey is in a good spot going into the summer, and I really think they're going to start challenging Europe. I don't know if they make it in the top 2 for DreamHack or wherever the summer land's going to be, but they could definitely make a run at it in the summer.
Yeah, that also depends, right? It depends on how many teams are actually going to be going to LAN in the summer. And if it's more or less, then, well, it's not going to be less, I assume. And if it's the same amount, then it's going to be difficult for pretty much any team in EU to get there with how competition is. If there's 4 teams going, then the top 3 that we have right now should be pretty set. Maybe one of them drops out due to both Obey and Mouse stepping up and knocking them down. I think the big team in EU that I don't or can't really give LAN chances to right now has got to be SK, because of how poor they've looked still, all things considered, in this second half or in this split. Even with Who the Best, they've not looked convincing, right? They still didn't manage to find a set win over Mouse Sports. And what's even more worrying maybe is that they still haven't found, or that in that set, right, it looked like a more dominant set for Mouse than the first one they had played. And unless there's big changes coming to this team, where it's probably requiring roster changes at this point, and it might have to be just gameplay changes as well. I'm not sure I can see them making LAN at all next split.
We've been screaming it for about a year now because they were only really ever relevant in the past 2 seasons for the first 2 weeks of the summer split in season 4. But we've been asking for it for a year, and Lobster has to step aside, in my opinion. I mean, he's holding this team back right now. Fells and Ducky look really good. It's just the carries aren't there. And yes, Funballer hasn't looked like himself in a long time either, but he's playing better than he has at any point in the last 2 seasons over these last couple weeks. Right now, it's got to be Lobster, and Lobster's got to be replaced. And you look at who could potentially place him. I mean, Death Panther's still down there. Is he a legitimate replacement? A couple of years ago, probably not. But now, I mean, right now, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I think right now is the perfect time to make a change to both your solo, to both your mid and support. Those are the 2 changes I want to see coming out of them. I want them to bring in a support who's going to be their main shot caller in the game. And I want them to bring in a new mid laner who's going to be entirely focused on his individual play. Instead of how Lobster, from what we still know, right, or from what we at least can assume, was still trying to shot call for the team as well. But I think he's just past his prime, to be honest. And I'd replace him right now. Put him. He's certainly gonna get on a minor league team, right? So let him play there. If he finds great form again without having to shot call, maybe you can bring him back. But I think going for a different option right now is the way better choice, because you have talent available that is at least worth a try. And it's still only gonna be the second split of the year, right? Not the last split where Worlds qualification is on the line. So you can still experiment to try and get something together that works, because right now the SK roster's just not working.
I completely agree. I think if you're going to make a roster change, you want to do it now instead of the fall. I mean, not everybody can pick up of a Nanu type player and just make a run through Worlds like United did. So, that's only going to happen once in maybe 500 tries. So go ahead and get a replacement in the summer. Work out any kind of gameplay synergy issues that you have during this split, so that come the fall split, you give yourself the best chance to make it to Super Regionals and make a run into Worlds.
Yeah, the entire idea is just, you don't have something that works right now, try something else. If it doesn't work, you're in no worse of a position than you are right now, and that you would be if you didn't make any changes. And there is the chance that it works and you have a working roster together that is finding success in the SPL, and that you can keep going into the fall, and that you can work with on improving. So that's my philosophy on it, at least. I want to see changes to SK. We want to see changes to Mouse, and I think the rest of the league doesn't need any changes as far as the EU side is concerned. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that pretty much sums it up. SK needs a new mid lane, possibly another support. I liked who the best looked But is he a true support? That remains to be seen. So, and then obviously the solo lane for Mouse, Nika just hasn't gotten better from week to week like the rest of Mouse has. And really, right now, without a drastic gameplay change from Nika, he's what's holding Mouse back right now.
Yeah. So to talk about the same topic on the NA side, do you think there are changes needed here, and to which teams? Or first, no, let's first talk about which teams you're looking forward to or that you think are going to be contenders in the summer on the NA side.
My first pick, and this might surprise you, but my first pick's going to be Luminosity. I'm on board with what F. said at the beginning of the season. Clout, at least through the spring split of Season 5, has looked like one of the best hunters in the world. He's really stepped it up. I think the one area right now that's hurting this team is Keekmate, but he's a rookie. He's going to get better. And I think given time, given another mid-split, or middle of the season time off where they can play together as a team and get him looking more and more like a professional, SPO level mid laner, I think Luminosity can break into the top 2 next split. I just think Clout is so good. Weekend has played amazing this split. Kiki's just Kiki. I mean, for the most part, he's playing Guardians, and yeah, that's kind of what Kiki does. He's still an amazing team fighter come that late game. And in the games that they were able to win, it was Kiki doing whatever he wanted to, soaking up every kind of damage, and Clout and Weekend just cleaning up in the back line. And so Luminosity right now, even ahead of Counter Logic Gaming for me going into the summer, I think this team has potential to make it to DreamHack.
I'm not entirely sure if I agree, to be honest. I mean, I'm just not on the Cloud hype train, to be honest. I think there are better hunters than him in NA still. I think Panda, if he's on form, is better than Cloud. And I think Barra, if he's on form, is better than Cloud. And I think Barra is slowly finding form again.
The one thing about Clout, though, the one argument you can make is he, in his individual matchups against basically every other hunter in North America, he has won those matchups, with the exception of PandaCat. Because, Clout didn't play in week 1 against PandaCat. It was their coach, Oceans. And then last Tuesday, during the last week, PandaCat really schooled Clout. But Clout has, he's looked better than Zapman, played better than Snoopy, played better than Barracuda, even though Space Station won both of those games. And Cyclone Spin, basically right now, all he has is a ROM. And if you take Cyclone Spin off that ROM, who's the next hunter he's going to play? Clout has looked better than everybody with the exception of PandaCat.
Yeah, I guess. I think if you only consider the laning phase, maybe, yeah. I'm not sure if he's generally better than Barra, right? And I'm not sure that we're going to see the same sort of performances out of Barra in the summer as well, right? He's not generally played as badly as he has this split. So I think he can come back to form, and then in that case he can be better than Cloud again. And as you said, Panda, I think is just better overall and has been better. And even if Barra is not better, or even if Even
I
if
just want to point out,
Barra and Panda are both not going to be better than Cloud, I'm not sure it's going to matter too much because of how little focus is on Hunters right now. And because of how good comparatively to that their mid laners have looked compared to Keeksmade, right? And I think it's not even necessarily a case of
let's
Keeks looking massively worse than Cloud. I think it's more a case of the mid pool in NA just being insanely strong right now, with Baskin being probably the best player in the world, and with Venenu popping off like madly.
let's put an let's put an asterisk on this. I don't think Space Station goes to the LAN without Baskin. I think it's not.
Definitely
I think it's not Space Station gaming. I think it's Baskin gaming right now. And
Yeah.
without Baskin, Jeff being the exception, the other three players on the team, Anister, Barracuda, and Aquarius, they just hadn't looked. Well, they haven't needed to look all that great because Baskin is just Baskin. And without Baskin, I don't think Space Station make the LAN. That's neither here or there. Going back to the luminosity thing, Clout and not Gino, or Clout and Gino, go whatever you want to say it is. They've looked like they've been a really good duo lane since they got together. Weekend and Kiki, really good together. You've played together for years now. Keeks makes kind of the new guy. And if they're going to make a roster change for Luminosity, it's probably going to be the mid lane, even though I don't think Keeks made is necessarily an issue. I think he's going to get better as he plays. But if you're going to make a roster change, you got to be to the mid lane. And throwing this out there, there's a mid lane in the North American Minor League who's probably the best player in the minor league. Could fit really well with this roster, and his name is Paul. It's pretty. Payne Divion's the support. Who would have guessed Payne Divion finds another amazing mid laner? And so I think Paul could fit in with this team if they're going to make a roster change. Well, I would like to see Keeksmade stick around. I think he's really good.
Yeah, I think he deserves the chance, right, to stay on this roster and improve with them. I'm just not sure it's going to work. I mean, that's my entire point, basically. I'm not sure that they will be a top 2 team, or a team even qualifying for LAN in the summer. And I think if they don't, it's going to be down to Cloud not being as madly better than everyone else in the league anymore, due to other hunters stepping up, right? Snoopy's not hit his peak, and Cyclone's still not. This still doesn't have a massive amount of experience in the role. If they find more experience, then they can step up further. And again, Barra, I expect him to come back stronger. And Panda, like we already said. And then the top 2 mid laners in NA, right? Even if they bring in a new one, I'm not sure he's going to be able to compete with Baskin and Venenu. And you know that if I'm giving credit to Venenu, then he really does deserve it.
Well, let's look at the 4 teams that didn't make the LAN. Counterlogic, Trifecta, Luminosity, and Splice. Trifecta, the question is can Scary D keep this level of performance up for the rest of the year? It's looked good in the spring, but it's still Scary D. Until he does it over the course of a year, I'm not going to be sold on him. When he is playing like he is, he's really good. But we've seen him not play so well. And when he's not playing so well, he's a liability to the team. Matt Yankee, still not sold on him in the mid lane, though he has played better this split than he looked any time on that Allegiance team last season. in the mid lane. I'm not really ready to say Met Yankees a mid laner right now.
Yeah, he should
That's
be. See, if anyone's going to bring in Paul, it should be trifecta.
no. I think if anyone's going to bring in Paul, it's got to be Splice.
Oh,
The best has just not been the best, and nothing personal. I just don't. I think the best out of all the mid laners in North America, the best has looked the worst.
it's ironic.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing when I said it.
Yeah,
But I doubt the best gets removed from that Splice team because he's been with Aurora and Devios for almost 3 seasons now, and so don't really see him being removed. Though if it does get any, if his gameplay doesn't improve, it's pretty much a lobster situation. They're just keeping him around because of the name power, really.
yeah.
But even Counter Logic Gaming, if we're comparing them to Luminosity right now, excuse me, if we're comparing Luminosity Counter Logic Game, I think Final K is a really good solo laner. Herwin's what you want in the mid lane, where he just plays anything and everything, and is really not a reason. Never really gives you a reason to say, "Oh, he cost the team." I mean, there's nothing really bad I can say about anybody on Counter Logic Gaming. I just think Luminosity has a higher upside right now than Counter Logic Gaming, and
Yeah.
that's all I can say. I mean, Clout and Weekend have played amazing. Kiki and Gino have done exactly what you want their frontliners to do. Keeg's mate continues to improve, and he's definitely earned the right to at least play through in the summer. Luminosity, I think, could knock Space Station out. I mean, I would still say E United is probably the best team in North America, even though they're second place right now. Luminosity could, if in fact, knock Space Station out of that top two.
I think if anyone's going to be, it's going to be CLG. And I think that's because even if you just compare them to the Luminosity roster, I think you have a very good case for Cloud being better than Snoopy right now. Almost an undeniable, it's almost a fact at this point. What I think you can also make a good case for is on literally everyone else on on CLG being better individually than literally everyone else on Luminosity. And yeah, if you include potential improvements that could be coming out of the different players on the Luminosity roster, right out of Keeksmate, most of all, then yeah, Luminosity could be a better roster than CLG. I don't see it happening. And I think you also have to account for improvements on Final Case side as well. Because he's still someone who I see as developing and who I see as turning into one of the better solo laners on the NA side. And I think despite of how good Weekend has looked, he's kind of fallen off going into the latter half of the split. And Homie's just still Homie, right? He's still that guy who's going to show up in a lot of the games he plays. And yeah, he does get stomped from time to time. But that's just how he is. And in the games where he is not getting stomped, he's probably going to carry you. So it's fine. And I think the CLG roster has more potential than the Luminosity one, to be honest.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I mean, what else? You hit it on the head. I mean, Cloud has been playing better than Snoopy. you can make the argument for the rest of the team not being as good as the rest of Counter Logic. I just think if the mid and the jungle continue to drive the games in the summer, what can I say? Like, I really like this Luminosity roster right now. It's even with Keeg's mate in the mid, nothing. Do not sleep on this guy. Okay, he's looked really good at times. Still just a rookie though. Final K, yes, Final K's still top, one of the top in North America right now. Homie Faye's going to show up pretty much every game he plays in until he gets to LAN, and then it's a coin flip. But he's not going to LAN, so that's not a problem. Herwin's everything you want from a mid laner right now. Snoopy is still Snoopy. He's just not Snoopy, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure anyone else is going to get what you're saying.
Snoopy still does Snoopy things. He just doesn't look like the Season 2 Snoopy.
Yeah.
So he's Snoopy, but not Snoopy.
Yeah, he's the regular version of Snoopy and not supercharged Snoopy.
He's the one that can play any hunter that you needing to in the dual lane and be really good at those hunters, but he can also play Vulcan's kind of a toss out there to the very fringes of meta right now, but he could probably play Nuoff. They needed him to play Nuoff.
Yeah, he's just not gonna shit on you if you're the enemy team, which is what supercharged Snoopy would do. He's gonna be solid, but he's not gonna. He's not been more than solid so far. But time will tell if that changes in the summer, obviously. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that CLG, right, if they hadn't dropped some of the sets along the way, we would still be looking at them being on LAN. Being at LAN right now. Right, they had that upset against LG, where they just got stomped by them. If that hadn't happened, they would be at LAN, but they're not. But I guess if you say that, you can make the same argument for United, right? If they hadn't dropped the set to Trifecta, they would have one set win more as well, and they would still be tied with CLG and would still have the better head-to-head record, or the better game record, because they weren't 2-0'd anywhere near as much as CLG was.
I mean, let's shift focus to the world champs right now. So, started off the split 0-3. We were pretty much everybody was hitting the panic button, saying, "Oh no, United is having some sort of world's hangover. They don't look like the world champions." Kind of changed the narrative halfway through the split, and like we said, dropped one set to Trifecta coming down the stretch, but pretty much beat the crap out of everybody else they played.
Yeah, again, I'll emphasize this, right? They lost 2 games, 2 matches, or two games, right, in the second half of the split. They both just happened to be against the same opponent in the same set.
And really, again, that was Mask pretty much carrying the entirety of Trifecta over the United. Mask went off in that set, and I think that's pretty much sums up why Trifecta was able to beat United. But, I mean, to start 0-3 and finish 6-1 and make the LAN, still going into the Masters, going into this tournament, still think United is probably one of the 2 favorites to win the entire thing.
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, I know that I have two teams who are favorites to win as well, at the very least.
That's assuming Dignitas doesn't pull another Super Regionals.
No, they only do that at super regionals. That's the point, you know.
But the thing about E United that is really scary come LAN times, Panicat and Benji always show up for LANs and play really well at LANs. And, Polar Bear Mike said it, I believe, during the fall split when they were making their run to Super Regionals. In an interview, just get Benji to LAN and then Benji will carry you through LAN. So Benji and Panicat are two scary players on LAN. And with the rest of the team, the Nanu actually looking really good over these last 7 games. Polar Bear Mike's nothing bad to say about Polar Bear Mike. Does exactly what you need him to. Looks good doing it. The one position that I'm a little bit worried about is Scream. Though Scream has the tendency to do the exact same thing Benji and Panicat do at LANs and pull out Bastet jungle and absolutely carry with it. So E United, I believe E United is still one of the two favorites. I would say Ravel is also the other of those two favorites because Ravel plays really good at LAN, and they're 8-2. They finally got their online crap out of their system. So,
yeah. See, I think what you have to point out though is when you consider who the favorite's going to be, you still have to look at Dig due to how they play as a team against Rival, right? In the head-to-head, I think they won both of their sets against them.
Super Regionals.
Super Regionals is an outlier, okay? you just if you look at the split right now, right? If you look at the top of EU, basically, the idea is that Rival beats Energy, Energy beats Dig, and Dig beats Rival. So if Rival and E United are going to be both on the same side of the bracket, one of them's going to eliminate each other, obviously. Dig, meanwhile, should just put in cruise control and cruise all the way to the finals, right? Those pesky NA teams, what are they?
Dig looks like definitely a better team than Space Station.
Yeah.
Baskin's probably the best player in the world. I don't think there's a doubt about it. Anister, you can make an argument for, or not Anister, but Adapting, you can make an argument for being right there, close to him. But which one's going to LAN? That would be Baskin. So, Baskin Gaming, if Baskin plays well, and he can get a little bit of a help from Barracuda, I think Space Station can give Dignitas 5 games. Still think Dignitas is the better team. So Dignitas should come out of that side of the bracket if the brackets line up like that. We don't know yet.
Yeah. But again, if they do, Dig versus Rival in finals, or Dig versus United, whatever, Rival's gonna get revenge. And due to how the matchup goes, Dig should win that. So they're also favorites, right? That's the entire logic.
I mean, I don't know if Dignitas is favorite to beat Rival. I mean, yes, they beat them online. Look at the last 2 times they played them at LAN. 5 games at DreamHack last summer. Dignitas barely comes out on top of that. And I believe it was a 3-0 or a 3-1 at Super.
It was a 3-0, yeah.
3-0 for Rival. Rival seems to have Dignitas' number at LAN.
See, I think you're putting just too much value into Super Regionals. Because that was just Dig not showing up. It wasn't Rival sort of legitimately beating Dig. Like they still looked amazing, of course. You don't 3-0 any team without looking amazing. but I don't think you can put too much into it. I think if Dick shows up there, they can take the set. If Dick shows up again here in at LAN, and you have to consider normally they're not a bad LAN team themselves, right? Their players also tend to step up on LAN. Just look at Variety. Just look at Variety and the World Championship in Season 3. Stepped up massively there. And Cubo steps up on LAN from time to time as well, or has the potential to, right? If they do, then I think they can take on anyone. So they're also in my list of favorites for that tournament. Sabo. Huh. But yeah, that's really just my opinion, basically. Huh. I think Sabo's gone. So yeah, let's talk, while he's gone, about some other teams, or the other two teams that we haven't really touched upon so far on the NA side, which would be Trifecta and Splice, right? And Trifecta, we already kind of touched on Yankee being their mid laner, and I think both me and Sabo are not really recognizing him as too much of a mid laner. And it's just because, not necessarily because he's a bad mid laner, but more so because he is more of an ADC player. And I still think, or well, it's not necessarily because he's a bad player, it's more because he's a way better ADC than he is a mid. And I think if you put him back into the ADC role, which you can't really do because you have Satman on your team, who is arguably still better than Yankee in that specific role, he could look like an SPL level player again. Again, issue is competitions for that role is way too high right now on the NA side. Despite most of them not looking amazing. I think Med also wouldn't have an easy time within this specific meta. But as a mid, he's not looked convincing to me so far. And that's where the main problem with Trifecta lies. And I said that coming into the split, it was my reasoning behind why Splice was expected to be a better roster than them by me, which obviously didn't end up being the case. We're going to get to that in a bit. I still think
I think you can make an argument that Splice is the better team, even though their record doesn't show it.
Yeah, it's a weird argument to make, though. But yeah.
But it's still a valid argument you can make.
What?
I still think it's a valid argument you can make that Trifecta is still... Splice is still a better roster than Trifecta, even though their record doesn't show it. Being able to force 3 games against everybody, I mean, maybe a play changes here and there, and we're looking at Splice going to LAN and not Space Station or United.
Yeah, see, I think the best way to describe this team is just that they have been disappointing so far. And the reason they've been disappointing is because of how good they've looked in the games they've won, right? And due to the names that are on the team as well. And if they can manage to find better form within that specific team, then yeah, they can.
So how did we get back
I think the way to sum it up, the entire question between Trifecta and Splice, is to say Splice has more potential. Right now, they might not just be realizing it. And yeah, we got back to this discussion because you somehow dropped out, and I had to cross time, and I noticed we hadn't really talked about 2 of the teams in NA yet, which were Trifecta and Splice, because we only really touched on Trifecta, on Met Yankee being their big weak point, and I was trying to emphasize that a bit more. And yeah, then I would have gone into Splice.
Well, I think you hit it on the nail on the head when Met Yankee is the weakness of Trifecta. Still, Still not sold on Scary D yet. I mean, we've only seen him do it for this really this split. Uh, he's very much been a liability to his teams in the past, and I want to see him not just do it for one split or just. I want to see him do it over the entire course of the season before I'm sold on Scary D. As far as Splice goes, Cyclone's been not playing Hunters and then trying to play a solo lane over there. They basically had 2 solo lanes for like 3 weeks in the split and didn't really lead itself to a lot of tower damage. Yeah, they could win the fights, but when it come to sieging up towers or doing objectives, it was not really. I mean, the best couldn't do it all by himself because mages, with the exception of the ADC mages, the hunter mages, the auto attack based mages, which best doesn't really play a whole lot of, mages just don't do a lot of tower damage, and so they had zero objective damage in those 3 weeks when Cyclone refused to play hunters. But now that he's on a hunters, want to see somebody ban Rom away from him and see where he goes next. But now that he's on hunters, I mean, and he's looked good on Rom, Splice looks like potentially a team that can win. Finally, find some set wins in the summer.
Yeah, he's just not looked good on anyone but Rom, right? But yeah, if he can find more hunters that he's going to be comfortable on, then he is going to, or this entire team is going to be a bit more threatening going into the summer. But still, like you said as well a bit earlier, Best still needs to find some form with the mages he's been playing. And I think, unlike with what's the case with Trifecta, where I think Met Yankee's just never going to be a good enough mid laner at an SPL level. He's been given so many chances right now, right? I think it's been 3 or 4 splits that he's played as a mid laner.
See, that's what surprises me about Trifecta, especially over these last 2 weeks, where hunters have been pretty much a staple in the mid lane when it comes to top end players like Benenu and Baskin. Why they just didn't give Met Yankee a hunter? I mean, they tried to put him on Soul a couple times. I mean, for the pretty much the last 2 weeks, NA has adopted that double hunter composition. Now, they didn't have 3 tanks. They did put a warrior jungle for the most part in Osiris and Ravana, but they pretty much built them straight damage and very little tankiness. So the double hunters, that was what was confusing to me about Trifecta. You basically have 2 hunters on your team, and why not give your mid laner a hunter when he is a hunter? He's not really a mid laner. He's a hunter.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think what I don't get is the entire him being on the team in general, to be honest. I think Met sort of has to be just gone. Like, even in the summer, I don't expect that weird hunter mid and hunters in duo being kind of bad stuff to even survive at all. I think meta changes are going to be coming that are going to be removing or making that a lot harder to pull off. And at that point, what's the point of having Met on this team? Met is not going to be an SPL level player on mages, at least not in my opinion. So you get some other mid laner who plays mages to an SPL level, and Trifecta's biggest weakness, their biggest weakness that I saw coming into the split, and that I think has shown itself, is gonna be gone, because now you have a competent mid laner instead of Met. See, and that goes back to my point of me wanting them to do the move to bring in a minor league mid laner. I think it's because, unlike Best, Met doesn't have a massive potential in mid. Right? I think Best, if he comes back with some form, he can become a good mid laner in NA again. I don't see Met Yankee ever doing that. And,
That I agree.
Yeah.
That I do agree with. Best, though Best is like the American version of Zyros, where he has really a very limited god pool or only wants to play certain gods. I think he does still have a much more of a upside than Met Yankee has or will ever have in the mid lane. Um, so we agree there. I just where we disagree on is that Met Yankee has been the sole issue for this trifecta team. Zapman just hasn't looked all that well this split either. So you can't really put a lot of blame on Zapman because the meta just doesn't favor the ADC role right now. I won't say hunters anymore because we've got our answer to hunters in the mid lane. Really, the ADC that has not played all that well throughout the entirety of in both regions, with a few exceptions of somebody like Arkle and Cloud.
Yeah, and week 6 Jermaine.
In week 6 Panica.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he's their only issue, right? I think he's just the biggest one and the one that is most easily solvable because, as you said, there are good mid laners in the minor league.
I think that's what his. I think that pretty much is what would lead Met Yankee to be removed before Zapman is. He's not the only problem. He's the one that's most fixable right now.
Yeah. He's the biggest one and the one that's most fixable. And even if you want to keep Met, then if you want to give up on Zapman, put Met in the duo lane as the ADC, and still bring in a new mid. Right? But I don't think it's time just yet to give up on Zapman. I think his peak that he has shown in the past is just way too high for you to drop him unless you have some massive up-and-comer in the ADC role. And again, I don't watch the minor league, but is there one there? Some up-and-coming ADC?
I mean, there are a few. Wowie, Data Remember. God, I forgot who the hunter was for not Astral Authority, but Anxiety Disorder, which is Paul and Pain Devion and Mando Warriors team. I can't even think of his name, but he's a very good hunter as well. So there are a couple options in the minor league that you could take a look at if you were looking to replace a hunter or an ADC.
Yeah, and I don't think historically any of those have been good enough to sort of warrant being on a top 6 SPL team, right? In NA.
I mean, Paul, even the best mid laner in the best player in the minor league, used to play ADC once upon a time. So Paul's another option if you want to bring in Paul for the ADC role.
But that would mean you would keep Met in mid.
Move Zapman to mid.
Yeah, let's do Zapman mid, please. I want to see it for one game at least.
And if it works, we'll shut up and be like, "Hey, Zapman can play mid."
Yeah, just do it, please. That would actually be hilarious. Or just imagine you put Zap mid, he just feeds his brainouts the entire game, but Med in the ADC role just goes 20-0 or something.
Enough trolling. Okay, let's not troll anymore. Come on.
Yeah.
We'll just Jeff will play mid and Baskin will play support, and Baskin will just go ham on a Geb and get like 20 kills because
Yeah.
it's Baskin.
Now, didn't we have that entire talk about the initials of the space station, guys?
We did, but we didn't have anything on. We didn't. You weren't able to record, so we never actually said it on the record.
No, but it's in
On the
chat,
cast.
right? In chat, okay. You said it in chat, right? Oh, yeah, it adds up. You should explain
Sure.
it.
Okay. To explain it, Space Station Gaming. You have Jeff Inla, Annister, Barracuda, Baskin, and Aquarius. Take the first letter of every one of their names in that order. J A B B A. What's that spell? Jabba. Jabba the Hutt. Star Wars. Star Wars Death Star. Death Star is a space station. Space Station Gaming.
Yeah.
Illuminati confirmed.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. But what they need to do is just switch roles, right? So
What, put Jeff in the solo lane?
yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to put Chef in solo. So you have to roles like you have on an
also have to
SPS.
put, you also have to put Barracuda in support and put Aquarius in the ADC role.
No, you just said you wanted to be you wanted to have Baskin support get 20 kills. So you put Barra in mid and Baskin in support.
Aquarius in the ADC role.
You know how they've been saying that what you should do is just change the lanes. So you would have your hunter being played in the solo lane and your solo laner playing in the ADC role.
The easiest thing to do would be to change the spectator UI. Change the order of the names instead of the roles.
Yeah. Hyrus, can we get it done, please? Change the role order to support, jungle, ADC, mid. ADC and mid are interchangeable, so it doesn't matter. And solo. Oops.
I mean, they steal every other idea we have. Why not this one?
If they do that, then we would finally have Chaba.
We'd finally have confirmation that they steal from us, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that was a game one for Dignitas against Obey, where they left Trix Tank and Cubo Fred switched in the spectator UI for about 3 minutes. And so when I first look at the UI for their team, I think it's Sobek jungle and not Sobek support.
Oh god.
It took the administrator running the spectator UI 3 whole minutes to get that switched up.
Yeah.
It was like 50 seconds. You know how it starts. The spectator UI usually starts with like 50 seconds to go before the 0 minute mark, and then it was like 2.5 minutes before 2.5 minutes into the match before they got it switched over to to the right UI. So for the first 3 minutes of that video, go to YouTube because it's on Smite VOD. Finally, they finally put VODs on YouTube again. Which,
yeah, thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Hi-Rez, for doing that. But go watch that game one. For the first 3 minutes, the UI is switched up and it's like Sobek jungle.
Yeah. Can you imagine just Sobek blinking out of the jungle into mid and plucking you?
Hey, you know me. I'm a proponent of Bacchus jungle, so why not Sobek too?
Yeah. I mean, you know how there's this thing called Sobekitude, which is something F.S coined.
I've seen Sobek mid in my ranked games, so there's
Yeah, so no, like the application of the Sobekitude in the mid lane would be just way more powerful than in the dual lane. Just because mid laners do a lot more damage early game. That's my entire point.
that's the argument for Odin mid as well. Mid laners, warriors do a whole lot of damage, and Odin does a whole lot of damage early game.
Yeah, just put Odin mid every game, please. I really want to see someone do Odin ADC though.
Hey, I played Sun Wukong ADC and it works.
I mean, Cyclone should do it. They're probably going to lose the game off of it, but Cyclone should just play Odin ADC. One game.
Cyclone needs to pick up Bologna ADC and just build straight attack speed and lifesteal. You know how annoying that is in arena? Imagine Cyclone doing it in a ranked or in a professional setting.
I don't want to. Like, if you're talking about lifesteal Bologna, I'm having flashbacks to release Bologna. Because that's all she did, just heal her way through all of the damage that was coming in.
That's exactly what it would be with lifesteal. But, you
yeah,
put
except she wouldn't be full tank.
Put Iqbal and Executioner, put Aussie on there as well, build tank for the rest of them, and you're just using the 3 going whoop, 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 and healing up every chance you get.
That's yeah, but you're not tanky enough.
It's cancer.
I mean, the issue with cancer was because she had the fucking heals at level 1. Or, like, very early on in the game, and could just run you down by going first item Frostbound Hammer, because that was a thing. Or first item Heavy Hammer out of base, because that was a thing. And she had increased auto range, so she could stay outside of your AA range while she was running you down, while you didn't have a chance to fight back because she was slowing you for 1,000,000% and was also healing all of your damage from the some auto attacks that you actually did get into her. If she played it properly, they would just heal back up because Bologna release and 3 hits healed her for 50 HP or something. So yeah, let's just not do anything that approaches release Bologna, please.
I mean, really, if you put Iqbal Executioner and maybe a Frostbound Hammer on Bologna, she could be release Bologna all over again.
No, because you still need boots, so that's 4 slots gone. 3 or 4 slots gone, so you have 3 slots for defense. Issue is, if you build into the lifesteal early game, you're not going to have the defense and not going to have the chains potential, and they're just going to blow you up whenever you try to stick to them and then whip them with the fucking Scourge. And if you build it too late, the lifesteal, then you're not going to do the whole annoying stuff in the early mid game.
Let's not forget the shield bash that also reflects a little bit of the damage that the opposing hunter will do. You got the Scourge for the disarm. You can chase potential with the ultimate, and dropping the hammer on the opposing hunter would probably, with that amount of attack power, probably chunks that hunter down to like 10%.
Didn't you say Iqbal and Frostbound and Executioner?
Yeah.
That's like, what, 90 power at most with full Iqbal stacks? I guess with boots it's like 120.
You get 40 from boots, you get 40 from Executioner.
Wait, Executioner is at 40 now?
Executioner is at 30.
Yeah.
You get warrior scaling, and then you get what, 30 from. So that's 100 right there. You can sell Iqbal later for something like Adelada's bow, which I still think is one of the most underrated items in the game. I build it almost every time I play ADC, and that's another 30 power, and a lot of attack speed. If you really want to troll, just build Odysseus bow.
Yeah.
Good lord, that 3 with Odysseus bow just goes.
That's something I'd like to see more than lifesteal. release Bologna, basically.
Let's stop trolling with Bologna now. Let's go on to our MVPs for the spring split.
Oh,
Pretty sure we have the same two. Pretty certain we have the same two.
I haven't even thought about them yet, to be honest.
Well, you pretty much would. We pretty much have the same two, I would guess. It's
Yeah,
adapting
I guess.
for EU
And Baskin for an A.
and Mask for an A.
You're right, it's pretty obvious when you think about it. I mean, one of them made LAN and the other didn't. That's the main difference. Outside of that, they both hard carried their teams.
I think one of them made LAN by hard carrying his team to LAN. And so, yeah. We're pretty much in agreement in MVPs for the split, I would say.
I'd say Baskin is the simple of Smite right now. And you have no idea what I'm referencing because you don't watch CSGO.
No, I do not. Symbol is a player in CSGO.
Yeah, basically. Okay, let me explain to you simple, right? Really toxic player in the past. Always really good. Now has just gone completely God mode. Is without a doubt the best player in the game right now. Is hard carrying a team into finals most of the tournaments they play now and just stomping everyone. Getting like 25 kills in a 16-4 loss, which is madness. It's that simple. And well,
see, that's
Baskin's
the
the same.
See, that's the thing with first-person shooters, though. I mean, if you're really good at first-person shooters, it doesn't really matter what role you're playing. You're still going to be really good at first-person shooters. The thing with Baskin is, though, it's a MOBA. It's not a first-person shooter. So, you know, every role has its own defining characteristics, and Baskin has went from one of the best solo laners in the world to probably one of the best players in the world by simply role swapping. And
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from that CS:GO player you're talking about, but it's still a first-person shooter. First-person shooters, I know you have like bomb planters and runners and people just go kill somebody. But if the person that's planting the bomb is also the guy that says go kill somebody, he kind of fills the same role.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it's more complex than that, right? But generally, if you're good at something in CS:GO, you're gonna be good at most things in CS:GO. Should probably mention though, Simple has also switched from being a main rifler, so mainly using the automatic assault rifles, right, to being a main AWPer, which is a sniper rifle. And he's now the best player in the world.
Both require shooting people, so...
Yeah, but the first requires shooting people multiple times, and the second one just requires shooting them once.
Hey, if you can hit somebody multiple times, you should be able to hit him once and kill him.
It's kind of similar to solo lane and mid, you know, because mid ult,
exactly.
you throw the mid ult on him and he's dead, but in solo lane you have to chase him down. Except you don't have range, so it's more like going from a main shotgunner, which is not a thing, to a main AWPer, which is a thing. But yeah, point is they're both insanely good. That's the only point I was trying to make, actually.
That point made, point taken. I mean,
yeah, not just if people see if there's someone in our audience who doesn't actually watch Smite and instead watches CS:GO, in which case, why are you here? They will now know how good Baskin is, roughly. So I'm providing a very valuable service to them. That's all I'm saying.
For people who are not familiar with CS:GO, Baskin is probably like the Kobe Bryant of Smite.
Okay.
What I mean by that is Kobe was, Kobe's not Michael Jordan, of course, but you know who Kobe Bryant is, though, right?
I've heard the name, and I know he's very good at basketball, at throwing balls into hoops.
Yeah. Okay, let me put it this way. He's not so much a Kobe Bryant. He's a LeBron James of Smite right now.
Yeah.
You can LeBron can play any position on the court and still be the best player in the world. Baskin kind of fills the same role for for Space Station. You can put him in any position on any god, and he can still be completely the best insane player you will ever see. I mean, game one against the United plays, yeah, it didn't work out late when he went like 1-5 to end the game, but 6-0 or 5-0 on Achilles mid. I mean,
Yeah, that was just pure madness.
so yeah,
And I mean, you did say that was the one set where he didn't look like the best player in the world.
he looked like the best player in the world for like 10, 15 minutes in that set, and then he just kind of looked like another average player because United just played too good as a team and really took the fight away from Baskin, where he wasn't as impactful and couldn't snowball the game for them. And United, really avoided Baskin for the later half of that game, and then got really big where Baskin just couldn't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of what you have to do when it comes to players like Baskin adapting. They're going ham, popping off in the early game. You just kind of got to take the fights away from them, and then stall out the game to where, you're even, and they can no longer just utterly destroy you by themselves.
Yeah, it's also depends on what they draft into, right? If they're going for an Achilles, right, who's primarily going to be just amazing in the early game, then yeah, you have to just survive them. And if you do, then you can beat this team. And obviously they did. Not sure what else there's to really say about it, to be honest. Just Baskin and Andy, both amazing. Baskin, pretty much clearly the best player in the world right now. And did I say Baskin and Andy?
Yeah.
I meant Baskin and adapting, of course. Andy's looked good, right? But not adapting good. And yeah, it's a shame we're not going to see adapting on LAN. But we're going to get Rival and Dig out of the EU side, and we're going to get Space Station, or Baskin Gaming, and United on the NA side. So lots of things to look forward to. And again, apparently minor league teams are also going. When is LAN starting, by the way?
I think the middle of next month. Middle of May.
Okay.
I believe so. Not quite sure, but it's obviously not this week, because minor league, there's still stuff to do in the minor league and still stuff to do in the global series. It's probably second or third week of May. I'm not quite sure. It's either 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away. We'll have to see.
Yeah, anyway, I'm sure we're going to find stuff to do for those days. But yeah, is there anything else you want to discuss? Anything else you have to say?
Just one thing, and it's really not anything topic related, but we did our caster rankings before Worlds, and we pretty much put Anatoly and Taco at the bottom.
Yeah.
And they're still at the bottom.
So it's just going to be a reminder.
But Taco in my opinion, Taco herself has gotten a lot better than she was. Still not really a fan of Anatoly because he just kind of says weird things and yeah. But I think Taco has improved, and I just want to give her credit, even though I'm not a big fan of her boyfriend. But hey, give Taco credit for making it work, getting better.
Yeah, I'll be honest here. I haven't paid too much attention to that type of stuff recently. Just been focused on the games mostly. But yeah, I mean, if someone thinks she's improved, then good for her. And again, my opinion's not going to be relevant because I kind of just a passive viewer right now. But yeah,
That's why you suck right now.
yeah. I'm just
All right.
also just tired because it's Saturday and it's evening and that's basically it. I don't need any more excuses.
Yeah. All right. Excuses.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap her up.
Yeah, I think
Say
that's
goodnight.
what?
Let's wrap her up and say goodnight.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do just that. Yeah, that was it this week from the Divinity podcast. Almost said the wrong name there. If you have anything to say to us, leave us a comment on the social media of your choosing. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a like on the platform if you're choosing. And if you want to be notified when more episodes come out, you can follow us on SoundCloud. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, or you can follow our Twitter account where we also post out predictions, sometimes at least, for the games that are happening. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Sabo, for being here with me today. And again, I'm going to apologize to both of you for not being here or not making it the last 2 weeks. And with all that said, good night, good Smite.